I started drawing when I was 6 years old in Southern California, when I was living with my brothers and sister and my 2 Estonian parents in Whittier, California, Southern California. I'd started drawing like every kid draws, and evidently I was good at it, so people gave me lots of encouragement, and it became clear with all this positive support that I should be an artist professionally. Then I went to art school, Cal State Fullerton, in the late 70s, early 80s, and at one point I was taught that to become a rich and famous artist, you have to move to New York. So that's what I did on January 1st of 1982. You have to eat art, breathe art, all your friends have to be artists, and you have to go to all the art openings and the art parties. And when that memory clicked in, I started to go to art openings, and almost overnight I became successful because I became part of the social part of the art world, which is essential in just about any career. And then through continuous trial and error, I concluded that there are 6 rules on how to become a rich and famous artist. Rule number 1 is make great art. Rule number 2 is live in New York. Number 3, circulate. Number 4, be professional. Number 5, have a story. And rule number 6, get other people to work for you. I have created over 23,000 paintings, and I've had about 400 one-person shows in my career, maybe 500, and then I've been in thousands of group shows throughout the world, and I feel like I'm just starting. How this painting came to be. About 2 weeks ago, in March of 2019, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a famous American politician, said, Paul Manafort getting such little jail time for such serious crimes lays out for the world how it's almost impossible for rich people to go to jail for the same amount of time as someone who is lower income. In our current broken system, justice isn't blind, it's bought. Justice isn't blind, it's bought. When I read that, I was inspired to make this drawing. So I projected it with pencil on raw jute, partially prepared with some acrylic gesso and certain parts. And I've been painting it since Tuesday, now it's Sunday, it's finally finished. So, 6 days of work, actually 5 plus a few hours today. Sunday, March 24th, 2019. That's how this painting came to be. These have been alluded to as shadows, this dark brown area that blends into the raw jute. However, they're really artificial contrast so that the background makes the foreground pop more. So I always put the dark against something that's light, that's important, that I want to jump out. I didn't do it everywhere. Like here, for example, I didn't do it here because it's implied. I did some here and some here, and then no contrast there except for the raw jute color. And this is all called alla prima blending, so it's just wet into wet oil painting using poppy oil as the medium. But here and here, it's not wet into wet oil paint. It's wet into raw jute using turpentine as the medium, more like a watercolor style of painting. So this is something I don't do that often, but after this fabulous experience here at Macro, I made a breakthrough, and I'm planning on exploiting that technique more. And at first, I was planning on doing it all kind of deliberate here, but I was going to let things kind of drip where they do, like you can see a little drip here. I didn't plan that drip, but it happened and I liked it. But after working with this technique, here too, these drips here, they weren't totally planned, they were just suggested, and then I let nature take its course, and the painting was sideways and it dripped this way. But then as I got to do it more, I found that I could control in exactly the same way I can control this stuff here. So for example, there's no arbitrary dripping here. And even here, that's not arbitrary. That's exactly the way I wanted it to go. When I learn something and I think it's useful and positive, I'm immediately inclined to share it, either in a video like this or on social media or when I give a lecture. But I think it's better if everybody's happy and successful. And that's a slightly selfish point of view, because then life will be safer for me too. So if you want the world to be successful, happy, and full of peace, it's actually good for you as well as for everyone else. So here I am hoping to make everybody rich. And wealth isn't just money. I'd like everyone to have money too, but true wealth is having great friends and having knowledge. Every time I learn a new word in Italian, for example, I feel a little bit richer. Knowledge is true wealth. When I started drawing at age 6, my subject matter was monsters and computers. And to this day, I still paint technology. I paint the latest iPhone. In the 80s, I painted the latest Walkman or the latest beatbox. And there's no computer technology visible in this painting, but in a lot of my recent paintings there is. But there is a monster. There's the corruption of a wealthy person who's buying justice. So I still paint computers and monsters. But when I did computers and monsters at age 6, it was more like science fiction monsters and gigantic computers, which is the way they were back then. And eventually I wanted to become a comic book artist. I wanted to draw Spider-Man and Conan the Barbarian. You can see I'm still doing swords, like Conan would wield. And so I really did, I copied Marvel Comics and DC Comics. Jack Kirby was one of my favorite artists, so Barry Smith. And I bought and sold comic books at comic book conventions like at Comic-Con in San Diego, and I met Jack Kirby, showed him my drawings, and he said, "You should study anatomy." So I went to art school and I tried to study anatomy, and there was no one that was willing to teach it. The teachers would say, "You don't need to study anatomy. Now we have conceptual art. It's not necessary to be a figurative artist." So I never really studied that much anatomy in school, but I learned a few tricks about how to succeed in the art world, namely move to New York. And when I got to New York and developed my signature style, one art critic named Eleanor Hartney said, "Kostabi's figures and his paintings are so bad, it looked like he studied anatomy under Gumby, because they were all like this. You know, wobbly. Now they're a little bit more anatomically accurate, but at first they were all wishy-washy and amorphous, but there was social commentary and people liked my work, so they bought it." So, one of my Kostabiisms is flaws are opportunities. So that means, you know, you can arm yourself with your weaknesses. So since I didn't know how to draw Peter Parker's face in 10 minutes like Johnny Romita could, I just did faceless figures. I can paint and draw faces, and I do portraits, but I didn't learn how to do, you know, the Gil Kane or Steve Ditko faces that you had to be able to do if you wanted to be a comic book artist. Often people ask me what I'm trying to say with my art, but there isn't one single message. I painted over 23,000 paintings, and they all have a different message. This one, for example, speaks about how justice can be bought. Others may speak about humanity's obsession with technology, for example, or corporate greed. I paint faceless figures to have a universal language. This way, it's like a mirror, and people can read their own story into the painting, as well as be influenced by the story that's alluded to with the props, like the scale of the book. But this could be a couple in a relationship in China, or it could be some theater event in Greece. It could be some New York scene. And therefore, that's probably why my art is popular in so many different countries, like Japan, Italy, Germany, United States, Estonia, because there's no race, and sometimes there's no gender. Like this one is pretty obviously a woman, and that's a man. But a lot of my paintings are kind of androgynous, and then they just become like ciphers for human beings. But basically, it's an international language, and it communicates.